Hello from Hamburg, Germany. In this video, I will make my points as to why I think that the Star Wars Andor show is a good show, but has recently been overrated. Recently as in January 2023. Around January 2023, a whole bunch of videos appeared that greatly praised the new Star Wars series, Andor. Having seen Kenobi, and still traumatized by the awfulness of the prequels, I was strongly looking forward to seeing something great again from the Star Wars universe. So I bought a subscription to Disney Plus and anticipated the weekend. And, well, alright. In reasoning why I think that this show is overrated, I compare it to my 3 favorite series so far: Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, and The Americans. Of course, there is Nip Tuck, which was great. There is the stellarly amazing Better Call Saul. And of course, there's the first season of True Detective, which is a league of its own. And many others were pretty good too. I chose those 3 ones because I remember the most scenes from those. They have plenty of memorable moments. In these shows, I became intimately acquainted with the characters. Not to say that I liked them. In fact, I strongly disliked Tony Soprano, Carmela Soprano, Walter White, Jesse Pinkman, Philip and Elizabeth Jennings, aka Misha and Nadezhda. I find almost nothing of what they do commendable. I do not want to work with them or be involved with them in any sort of project. But I really got to know them from the first season on. Their motives, their struggles, their sense of goals and purposes. I got to know their relationship, the goals, the conflicts. In The Sopranos, I get to know a whole world of families and their relationships. I learn about Christopher and Adriana. I learn about R.T. Bucco and his wife. I get to understand Paulie Gualtieri and little Carmine Lupertazzi. If you know nothing about these 3 shows, I strongly recommend that you watch all seasons of all of them twice, take lots of notes, and then come back to this video. Seriously, you will get my point without doing that. Some good stuff in Andor compared to other shows. Yes, we do have some interesting things. We have the office guy with ambition, whose nagging mom tries to push him around her own agenda in order to become proud of him. We have Imperial officials struggling with electronic equipment that does not always work as desired. We have silly kindergarten infighting over resources, competence, and credit for successes inside the Imperial bureaucracy. No, this is my department. No, I want credit. Wah, wah, wah. There is the ambitious newcomer who believes in the Imperial cause and who wants to make a substantial difference, break up the crust, and turn around inefficiencies. Local Imperial troops are not completely motivated, not optimally trained, and not necessarily super interested in the big picture of their mission. The original tribe of a colonized planet has an interesting relationship with the Empire. Motivations of the characters are clear. I understand what they do and why. When deaths occur, they have weight, other than in most other Star Wars movies and series. All these things make the world of Andor real, realistic, non-sterile. And yeah, the cinematography is quite superior compared to most other stuff out there. Some shots and compositions are amazing. Some of them worth of the greatest masters of frame, such as Kubrick, Spielberg or Ridley Scott. But besides looking great, they do not carry as much of message and meaning as the frames of the masters. They just look great, and that's it. The conference room in the Imperial Intelligence Agency shows power and strength, cleanliness, a clear mission, and sort of an equality of votes, given the form of a circle, with the agency director in the middle. The Antiquities shop shows the size of the galactic world and the time span of its recorded history. The main points about Andor. Now first let's examine the Andor series. I may get names and plot details wrong, since I have found very little memorable things on the show. The series evolves around Cassian Andor, a cynical small-time mercenary crook type who fences stolen goods of different sorts and is involved with some small-time underworld stuff. He's not shown to be very deep or complex. He does not appear to believe in a bigger purpose or any bigger belief system. He misses his sister, who he lost at a young age, who might be dead or not. Wanting some money for a better life, he is tricked by a smart warrior named Luthen Rael, who takes him to a planet that looks like Scotland. There he meets a small group of idealistic warriors who want to steal the cash payroll for an Imperial garrison. A particularly idealistic young guy has written a manifesto about his beliefs. In this project he's a little out of his depth and unfortunately dies during the heist. He insists that his manifesto is passed on to Andor. When that happened, I expected some key moments as to how that manifesto would change Andor's view on things. None of that came through. There was an opportunity to do something with this about the arc of Andor's character. Yet in Season 1, nothing. At least I remember nothing about it. Andor later goes into hiding, is then picked up for loitering on a different planet and sent to an Imperial labor camp. He devises a plan to break out and finally manages to get away, together with some other prisoners. The prison break plot reminded me of a typical 1970s Steve McQueen movie. Characters are clear-cut and their motivations make sense. None of them appear very complex or deep to me, but real enough to remain interested in the story. In the meantime, it is revealed that Luthen Rael runs an antiquities shop as a cover, where he has conspiratorial meetings. Senator Mon Mothma, who will later show up in Return of the Jedi, is organizing part of the rebellion. Her husband is entirely on the other side of things, it seems. What other shows have that Andor does not have? So, we have realism, seriousness, and weight. What do we not have? We have no relationship like the one between Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. We have no complexity and depth like between Tony and Carmela Soprano, and certainly no tension like in the attraction and conflicts of ideals between Philip and Elizabeth Jennings. We have no moment of the arch enemy moving in right across the street, in this case an FBI counterintelligence agent. We have no scene like Philip facing off with Pastor Tim, when Philip has just done something he did not want to do and sends himself into his own personal hell, while he wants to crush Pastor Tim, who is tirelessly trying to save Philip's soul. No moment of deepest betrayal where Stan Beeman discovers that his presumed best friend, whom he trusted, whom he shared marriage secrets with, whom he got drunk with, is a murderous Russian operative. There is no sense of a great loss while still being alive and having to live on with the pain of loss, like the moment when Paige decides to get outside the train just before the family crosses the Canadian border. No moment like saying goodbye to Henry on the phone without being able to word a goodbye. There is no moment like Paige pouring herself a vodka at Claudia's place that has nostalgia, regret, and mystery all at the same time. No lingering conflict like Gustavo Fring being unable to kill Walter White, which he so much wants to do, but cannot because it is part of the agreement with Jesse Pinkman. No multi-round match between Gus and Walter that ends in a literal face-off. And this depth cannot exist because the Andor show sets nothing up like that. Andor and his lost sister, coming from a planet of natives without much technology, Andor being taken in by a foster mother who loves him dearly. That is all there. But it is not deep enough. I keep hearing about Andor's sister, but I hardly feel her. The ambitious office guy gets berated by his mother, who is no less ambitious. But is it nearly as interesting as the relationship between Tony Soprano and his daughter Meadow? Is it as understandable as the moment when Tony Soprano tries to man up his son AJ in fear that he might be perceived as weak and gay, when one of Tony's captains just got brutally murdered for nothing more than being gay? The ambitious newcomer at the Imperial Intelligence Agency wants to run her own operation right off the bat, and she has to struggle with resistance inside the organization. But is it as painful and conflicted a struggle as that of Christopher Moltisanti trying to make it in the Mafia? Part of that is that she, the Imperial officer, is not acting as flawed, shallow, and egotistical as Christopher. Luthen Rail is sort of interesting, but mostly by the performance of Stellan Skarsgård. Stellan Skarsgård could play a crushed beer can by the side of the road and carry a whole movie that way. In this show, his talent is not sufficiently used. Mon Mothma trying to raise money, having to deal with unsavory characters, possibly ruining the life of her daughter with an unfitting arranged marriage. That carries weight. But does it feel as palpable as the episodes with Elizabeth Jennings and Jung Hee-sung, where she uses her Korean friend, then throws her away but still misses her? Although in this abuse there's much less harm to life and limb of the people directly involved. But it hurts. Mon Mothma and her husband have a few beautiful sarcastic moments together where they playfully clash about their different takes on life. But is it as deep as the conflict between Philip and Elizabeth Jennings about the perceived goals of the mysterious Santa that is never revealed, seen or described? And that is my main point. I feel some of Andor, but not as much as with other shows. That may sound surprising from a controller who is not exactly famous for feeling a lot. And I do not feel a lot. And I feel a difference here. Why do we want Andor to be great? Well, I get it. The prequels were awful. As British film critic Mark Kermode put it, George Lucas could not direct traffic. The sequels were so-so. After George Lucas had ruined The Force, Disney ruined Luke Skywalker. The son of Han and Leia was a bratty teenager. Rey was a sympathetic hero without much of an arc. Daisy Ridley could 100% become a legend in her role, but she was not given much real story. Kenobi was awful. Started out neat, looked great, but was as poorly executed as a third-grade school play. The Mandalorian was sweet, by no means bad, but it did not have much depth. It was not broad. There was no whole world to discover, just a strong-willed warrior protecting a cute, mischievous baby. Well executed, yes. So, don't we desperately want Star Wars to be great again? I know I do. As my house doctor says, if you're not paranoid, you are unrealistic. So at first I thought, did Disney pay all these YouTubers to give raving reviews? But more likely, those YouTubers just wanted Star Wars to be great again, like I did. Problem is, Andor is not that great. It is good, yes, but not amazing. Is it better than the prequels? Well, crushing your balls in a car door is better than the prequels, so yes. Is it better than the sequels? In my opinion, yes. Is it better than Kenobi? Hospital food is better than Kenobi, so there's no challenge here either. Is it better than The Mandalorian? Broader than The Mandalorian, but not quite as feely, so I say about the same score altogether. A completely different world. To be fair, we cannot possibly understand the subtleties of each of those alien cultures that are genetically different and tens of thousands of years away from us, under completely different living conditions. Those of us who, like me, grew up during the 1970s and 1980s can appreciate the subtle humor of Philip, former Russian Misha, attending American square dance on a regular basis. We may even get the whole S training on some level. I do because I spent some years in a similar environment. Having been a teenager and a young twin in the 1980s, I can put into context Elizabeth's first seduction scene in the first season, where she talks very explicitly about what she is doing with her espionage asset. Back then, even oral sex was sort of a big deal, while today oral and a lot of practices next to it are totally commonplace with many young women who I meet. But back then, oh. So we understand how far Elizabeth goes for her contemporary standards and how mind-blowing it must be for her unwitting source. And even when we don't appreciate the socio-historical context, we still understand what she is doing. At the same time, we can understand the different views of Elizabeth and her daughter Paige when they have their confrontation in the last episode about sexual morals. So, to some extent, we need to know the culture and the context to appreciate a scene. We cannot know how Shmufu Mafuzu grew up or what the morals were when Shlongo Schönpopo went through puberty on planet Cromdias 47. And who knows how 8-foot-high lizard frogs relate to their everyday jobs. So the kind of drama that depends on context, on a context that is already there, cannot be built in this kind of melange of worlds. My conclusion. So for me, Andor is a good show, not a great one. Compared to the sewage stream that almost all Star Wars has been since 1999, it is sort of a miracle. Compared to other great shows, it is a good one. It is interesting. Worth watching? Absolutely. A masterpiece? No. It wants to be one, but it lacks the feel. While it is deeper than most other Star Wars, it is not deep enough to become a masterpiece. Have fun.